How much attention do you pay to your Friday reset routine? Today I want to share 6 tips for an end of week exhale. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. We can say happy Friday and have casual Fridays as much as we like. But let's be real, Fridays can feel frantic for a lot of people. It can feel like this mad rush to the finish line of everything that you were trying to achieve that week, and potentially the realization that you didn't achieve a lot of the things that you wanted to, and maybe you didn't even start half of the things that you wanted to have been able to do this week. So, how do you use Fridays to reset, reimagine, and recreate to set yourself up for the week ahead? I've been thinking about this more lately because I feel like a Friday reset routine is something that everyone has, but you don't often stop to think about what it actually entails. I know in all of my previous roles that I've had, there was always certain things that I liked to do on Fridays. I wasn't ever one to just stop what I was doing immediately at that time and just leave it for Monday. I would like things to be in a certain order. And so it's just made me think about that transition that you have into going into the weekend or into a new week. And this made me think about rituals in general, because rituals aren't just a thing that athletes do on, say, game day. It is something that most likely everyone does in some way, whether you've stopped to actually think about it or not, or whether you've given it that term rituals. But rituals, as the research has shown, can have a really positive effect on your performance because it can reduce performance anxiety and also increase confidence. And the idea of transition routines, I think, fits really nicely into this conversation. And it's something that I started to think about more, or at least become more familiar with the term, during the lockdown periods and when people were working from home. Because transition routines are designed to get you to switch from one mode into another mode. It might be a mental or a physical shift. And when a lot of people were working from home, it was really important to be able to shift into that other mode or that other role that you had to play. And even when you do work in an office environment, you still need to be able to have that physical and mental shift before you step into the roles that you are outside of your work or the environments that you are in outside of the office. So let's dive into my tip number 1. My tip number 1 is to clear the canvas. Now, this might be your desk and making sure that it is set up for a fresh start when you return to work on Monday, but it can also be your desktop. This is something that I like to spend at least a couple of minutes on at the end of the week to make sure that I have filed away the things that I don't need anymore on my desktop. And because I am quite obsessively organized, I have a bit of a system on my desktop as well, as I'm sure a lot of people do. But that system means that things shift around on the desktop depending on the stage that that particular work is in. And whatever stage it is in at that time on a Friday when I'm wrapping up for the week, then I will shift those around and do a little bit of a re-merchandise of my desktop to make sure that it makes sense to me when I pick up my computer again, and just remembering that those little things are going to be what my future self will thank me for, and it will just know what is most important to address. And I like to keep those things really front and center on my desktop and make sure that things that aren't a priority anymore are moved away. So it just hones in my focus when I am back at work and looking to dive into a new week. And that relates back to what the research has shown about rituals, in that it helps you to create that sense of control. It helps you to navigate transitions. It helps to increase your ability to make decisions. It reduces decision fatigue. So those little few minutes that you can spend to just create a more calming space for yourself can help you to feel more in control when you arrive at the start of a new week. Number 2 for your Friday reset routine is to revisit your vision board. Now, if you follow this channel, you would know that I have become a really big fan of vision boards, particularly in the last couple of years, and I have other episodes on the benefits of that. But your vision board, to summarize, is essentially a really great opportunity to activate your reticular activating system in your brain and to tell your brain what it is that you want to focus on. Now, I keep my annual vision board as the desktop on my computer for most of the time. But what I do find is that during the week and in all of the chaos and the rush, you can start to just see your vision board as a little bit more like wallpaper, and you don't really pay attention to it as much. I'm sure it's still beneficial, but you're not really honing in on it or giving it that same appreciation as when you first created it and was so excited about everything that you put on there. So I like to think of Fridays as being a great opportunity before you completely close everything up for the day or wrap up or leave your office or shut down your computer. If you do have your vision board in that space, to just spend a little bit of time looking at it, even if it's just 1 minute, just really paying attention to what it is you put on there, thinking about the progress that you have maybe made in those areas, what is potentially something that you haven't addressed that you can think about maybe over the weekend or next week as well. And whether your vision board is in your office or if it is a part of your working space or on your computer at all, this I think is a really nice thing to do on Fridays in general when you have that time to reflect and you're going into this relaxation mode of the weekend. So I think your brain's just a little bit more at ease to think about the ideas that might come to you when you do that as well. And this relates back to research about identity rituals, which are the small symbolic acts that remind you of who you are or who you are becoming. Number 3 is to add to your wins folder. Very early on in my career, I can't even remember where it was I heard it, but I heard someone mention that you should create a folder in your inbox for your wins. So that is popping in things like positive feedback or maybe a compliment that you received from a customer or a colleague, so that you can look back on that folder whenever you need a bit of a boost emotionally, or maybe you're feeling good about the work that you do, maybe you've had a really difficult day, and see why it is that you do what you do, what it is that you love about your work. Just at a glance in a folder that is all positive vibes for you. What I have thought about more recently is taking this offline and really extending that out to be something that can go beyond just your emails. So when you're working on something that you're particularly proud of, maybe it's screenshotting a few things here and there so that you can put that in your folder and remember how it was that you felt achieving that thing. So you can head to your wins folder whenever you are having a bad day or maybe having a great day and you want to stay on that high that you're experiencing, and you can visit that folder and in just a few minutes be able to see things that are going to give you that extra confidence that you might be needing. So I would use Fridays to just reflect on maybe what went really well that week and if there is anything that you could potentially add to that wins folder. Ideally, you would do this as the moments happen so you don't have to as much remember to do it later. But if you haven't had a chance to do that during the week, then Fridays is a great time to check in on the progress that you have made and see if there is anything for the wins folder. Which also leads nicely into tip number 4, and this is to reflect on what could have gone better. Sometimes on Fridays we can feel like we are on such a high for everything that went well that week, but sometimes we can feel like it just has not been our week and things just didn't go the way that we had hoped. And Fridays is a good chance to not get completely stuck in our head so that it consumes all of our thoughts on Friday nights or into our weekend, but just take the opportunity to think about what is working, which you've thought about with your wins, but also what's potentially not working, what could actually be improved, and not having so much of the mindset of dwelling on that thing, but more thinking in a solutions orientated mindset. So if something is potentially not working, then what is it that you can do about that? The weekends, while your brain is more relaxed, is a great time to just have that question ticking away in the back of your mind as you're doing things that you enjoy, because often the best solutions that we have to our problems can come not from when we're actually working on that problem, but when we're actually doing other things. Because your mind is more relaxed, it can go into that problem solving mode in a more heightened way. So don't be afraid to ask yourself what could have actually gone better that week. Number 5 is to set yourself up for slow productivity. Now, I'm not about the hustle at all costs, work every minute of the day culture, but I do think there is something really nice about slow productivity, whatever that means for you, and using your weekends for that. For example, if there is a hobby that you really want to pursue or a project that you have wanted to work in your personal time, then your Friday reset routine is a really nice time to think about what it is that you want to do over the weekend that relates to those personal goals that you have. For example, maybe there is a meal that you want to cook. I know I like to use the weekends to really plan what that special meal in particular is that I really want to research and try if it's not something that I've done before, for example. And I also like to use Fridays to pick the book that I plan to read on the weekend as well. And I don't always get to read on Friday nights, nor do I always want to, but I really like the ritual of picking the book that I am going to be reading. I just like that little routine of knowing that that is ready to go and being excited about whatever that topic is. And number 6 is to have a Friday refresh ritual. According to the ISO standards, Monday is the first day of the week. So that makes sense in the business world. But depending on the region that you live in or the religion that you are, that is not always the case. The first day of the week can change. It might be Sunday, for example. I once remember hearing someone say, or maybe I read it, that your first day of the week can be any day that you choose it to be. It doesn't necessarily need to be Sunday and Monday. And I thought it was a really interesting idea because it's just about having this mental paradigm shift for your own purposes. Because the thing about Monday is, Monday blues is very real for a lot of people. The research supports this. It shows that stress peaks on Mondays. So, if you can reframe the way that you think about your week, there could potentially be the opportunity to just change how you see the days of your week. So, for example, is Friday the last day of the week, or is it potentially the first day of the week? The first day of the week where you are working for a day and then potentially having a couple of days off before you head back into the work week. It's just a different way to think about your week. And whether it's Friday or a different day, I just think it is a bit of a fun opportunity to think about if you can just see time a little bit differently and what impact this has on you, and what you could do to cement this thinking a little bit more. For example, instead of thinking of Friday as just the end of my week, I like to use the opportunity to really refresh a few things on Friday. One of those being I'm really enjoying buying fruit on Fridays and heading into my weekend with that fresh feeling instead of feeling like it is the end of the week. So maybe there are little things that you can do as well to have a fresh Friday feeling instead of feeling like it is the end of a finish line, and instead of feeling all of that pressure of the week that you've had and the week that is coming up, you can use the opportunity to reset with purpose and with poise. Thanks so much. Subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.